Hey friends, welcome to 1 Minute with Monét. Balance doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen one intentional minute at a time. This podcast gives you the tools to make it happen. I'm your host, Monét, your favorite concierge and founder of Time Managed LLC. Join me each week for practical tips and real examples to help you manage your lifestyle with ease. Welcome back to 1 Minute with Monét. Today I am excited to sit down with two leaders from Elite Personalized Medicine. It is a functional medicine and wellness practice here in Georgia, and they help people get to the root cause of their health concerns. So we have here today Andrew Anderson. He is the owner and co-founder of EPM, and Tane Patrono, a nurse practitioner who works directly with patients to create personalized whole body wellness plans. Now the new year is in full swing, so it's a perfect time to talk about how we reset our health, how we understand our bodies, and take a proactive approach to our wellness. So let's jump right in. Welcome to you both. How are you?
Good.
Fantastic. Trying to stay warm.
Awesome. Same. Same here. I am going to introduce the audience to both of you. First, let's start with you, Andrew. How did you get started? What inspired you to start Elite Personalized Medicine?
It's definitely a unique journey. I started out really right out of college. I was consulting integrative, holistic, and functional medicine practices on how to use natural therapies, either in place of or alongside of, prescription therapies, lifestyle, diet, all of that. That started in 2014 for me. And then I was doing that consulting for roughly about 10 years. And I was also doing that consulting, while I opened this clinic back in 2019. But how we got here is I was, coaching a lot of these providers and giving them a lot of guidance on these natural therapies. And I noticed that, some of the providers were really busy and could not run the practice maybe that they wanted to. They were inundated with patient care and some of the other things that needed to be provided at the office. So running the actual practice was a limiting factor for most all of them, or managing it the way that maybe other businesses are run. So we come up with the idea of, hey, why don't we have business people run the business part of the practice and let the providers and the medical director and all medical decisions run through the medical folks. And that has seemed to be quite the success for our practice. I think that is kind of this, one of the differentiators that we have that a lot of other practices may not. Usually the practices are owned by either the lead provider or the owner founder, and they oftentimes can never find their way out of seeing patients. Of course, they became a provider or a medical professional to see patients. That's the reason they did that. So we think it's best to keep them in that seat, but unfortunately, if you own the practice, there's marketing and there's payroll and there's all HR responsibilities and there's all kinds of things that come into play that a medical provider is most likely that's not their strong suit.
Mm-hmm.
So all that to be said, that's kind of how we got started in 2019.
Okay, awesome. And are there many practices that follow the same model?
Not as many.
Okay.
It's certainly in the minority. I don't want to say we're the only one,
Mm-hmm.
but we're certainly in the minority.
Okay, great. And so for someone who is just now learning about elite personalized medicine, how do you describe what it is that you do and your practice does, and what makes your approach unique?
Sure. So we practice what's called functional medicine. Again, some of the other terms are integrative, holistic, alternative medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And how we're different is really everything's different when you compare it to traditional medicine, right? We look at different labs. We look at different reference ranges of those labs. We have different length of visits than most of your either primary care or specialist visits are going to be, right? Our shortest visit is 30 minutes. Our initials are 1 hour. So, and again, these are one-on-one. The amount of patients we see in a day per provider is much lower. Our approach also is just naturally holistic. We do have the ability to write prescriptions when necessary, but we don't lead with that, and that's not the only tool in our toolbox. So that is just really a little bit of how we're different. Again, Tane, when she gets a chance to speak on this, she'll tell you that it's quite honestly completely different than than allopathic medicine. It is like almost going back to school and rethinking how you're going to treat a patient.
Very interesting. Well, we can't wait to talk to Tane. One more question before we switch over to her. Functional medicine is becoming more mainstream. And I grew up in a household where we, use a lot of herbs and supplements and natural remedies for healing. And so I've been exposed to it for a very long time. But it seems now those buzzwords, like you mentioned, holistic, alternative medicine, integrated care, is becoming more mainstream. Why do you think that is? And what's driving that shift?
Well, I think, well, for a variety of reasons. I do think the pandemic had a pretty good reason for a lot of people to look at what maybe the media and some other things they were putting out about vaccines and, hey, just listen to us type scenario. That may have been it. I do think more and more people have been not so interested in maybe only having prescriptions and surgery as an option in allopathic medicine, right? Once they start hearing that somebody around, the table or someone in their family or one of their friends is stating, hey, I actually went to this provider and they recommended all these lifestyle and diet and natural therapies. I think that is drawing a lot of people's interest because I don't know anybody that would raise their hand and say, hey, I can't wait to get on another prescription. The idea is to potentially have you limit those, use natural therapies in conjunction with those, or maybe even come off of them if medically guided.
I am so happy to see that more people are taking that way of life and considering these alternative types of medicine more seriously.
Yeah.
Tane, it's your turn. Let's learn a little bit more about you. Welcome. What led you to functional medicine and ultimately elite personalized medicine?
So first, with the functional medicine piece, I was actually in school to be a nurse practitioner at the time, and I wound up getting sick. Just started with left knee pain. And then as time went on, it got worse. More joints got added to the picture. And eventually, after several months, all of my joints felt like they were on fire. Just terrible pain in all of them. During that time, I went to an asthma allergy specialist. She ran some blood work, brought me back in a week later and said, I don't want you to panic, but on labs, it looks like you have lupus. So, well, when they say that to you, that's pretty life changing, or it makes you stop for a minute. And I thought, I don't think I have it. And it took 8 months of different providers and 2 visits of many specialties, such as rheumatology, which he suggested, infectious disease as well, cardiology, and gastroenterology. So I went to many different providers and they all said, yes, your labs all look abnormal, like you have lupus, but you don't have the physical presentation. We don't think that's what it is. We see it 20% of the time. Just wait, just watch and wait. And I thought, but I'm getting worse and I feel terrible. And I couldn't even hold on to the side of the table and squat a little without pain shooting up into my brain. So somebody at our congregation had said, I know a doctor who finds weird things. You're going to have to pay cash, but I bet he'll be able to help you. And my husband's like, let's go. We've got to figure out what's wrong. So we did pay a bit of money for that first visit and came back 2 weeks later after, again, collecting more lab work. And he said I had celiac. And so I thought, what? And it looks like on lab work, it has a very similar presentation. And he said, you're going to leave here and you're never going to eat gluten again. That's a very life-changing thing when they say that to you. And well, I loved bread and pasta. So that was a very big change. Took about 9 months. At the end of 9 months, I woke up one day and I was like, I haven't had pain for 2 weeks, 9 months for all of that pain to go away. Wow. From that time that I got that initial diagnosis, I found what I want to do. I knew it. I knew right there and then that was the direction I would go in because I thought to myself at the time, I was in school to be a nurse practitioner, working in the emergency room, and I kept seeing the same patients come back with the same complaints and nobody could ever get to the bottom of it. And I thought, I bet this is how they could get the answers to what they're looking for. And so from that moment on, I knew this would be the medicine I would pursue. So I went through school, and every time I got into a new unit, I would read what functional medicine would do as the answer for certain conditions. Then once I graduated, I just moved my way into functional medicine. Years later, after being in it and doing a residency in functional medicine, which was awesome, Andrew's group contacted me. They just said, well, we think we need to talk to you, and we'd love to meet you and see if we're fit for one another. And in fact, it wound up being a great fit. I think from the beginning, we all hit it off. And I thought, yeah, they're wanting to get this started the way I think it would be. And it really has been a good partnership, I think.
Oh, that is so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that story, because it paints the picture that you're doing something that you love, because you have actually seen and witnessed the benefits of this type of medicine and treatments. What else excites you about the work that you do?
Being able to provide functional medicine. So getting to the root cause. We call it root cause medicine. Finding out if something's not working, why isn't it working, and how can we get to the bottom of it and try to make things work better. Something else we get to do that I think is important is we look at hormones as half of what's going on. That's your body's endocrine system. And I think that's half of what balances things. And I think the other half is the gastrointestinal tract, which we all affectionately call the gut. But I think between the two of them, they work at a 50-50 to kind of try to balance things for our patients and for people, period. And so something that we do a lot with is hormones. And so people just don't think how important their hormones are to get things balanced. And so once we try to balance those, it's absolutely amazing for people. They're like, wow, this is unbelievable. And then going in and working on the gut in conjunction with that, they just feel better once we give them the answers to why they haven't been feeling well for a long time.
Now, walk me through, what does that first visit look like with you? So if I'm coming in, maybe I'm not having pain, or maybe I am. What does that first initial visit look like? Andrew mentioned that it's an hour. So can you walk me through what a new patient can expect?
Yeah. So at the beginning, we asked them to fill out a big questionnaire. And it's a lot of questions. So, and it's completely lifestyle driven, not just their health, but what's their environment like?
Yeah.
What are their concerns? Why are they coming? So that's a pretty big questionnaire, but that gives us an idea what's going on in your world that could be contributing to things not working well for you, or you're not feeling as great as you could feel. Then what will happen is we also collect labs so that at least blood work gives us a good idea of where to get started with the patient, because your blood work does outline, it does give us a rough picture of what's going on. And there's a big story that your blood work does have to tell. And I love to get the patient in front of me, educate them a little bit about what functional medicine is, what it looks at. Then what we do is we go over their lab work and outline values that we think are optimal values in functional medicine. And you'd be amazed what story your lab work tells. And so from there, we make a plan for the patient going forward, and then let them know what comes next. So it takes all of an hour and maybe a little bit longer, as Andrew can tell you for me.
Yeah. I mean, it takes that time to get to know someone. And if you're also doing the blood work and asking these questions to get a full picture, I think an hour is, not a tall ask. Especially when you go into some doctor's offices and they're like, you wait in the waiting room for 20 minutes and then they see you for 5 and you're out the door.
Yeah. And it's not like they don't want to help you. I think in medicine, we don't get into it without wanting to help people. Because in all honesty, if you have the talent to get through this type of training, you can apply that talent and be equally successful in many areas. So we're doing this out of love for people. And what's frustrating in medicine is not being able to help them or being given 5 minutes to see with a patient. Most of us are not that excited about it, but those are the constraints that we have to operate under if we're in the insurance model. So it can be a bit frustrating for us on the other side of the table as well.
Yeah, that's understandable. Andrew, we're going to go back to you. I have a few patient care experience questions on the business side.
Sure.
Tane mentioned paying out of pocket.
hmm
And so I do realize that this type of care is more expensive. Can you give me a sense for how much that initial visit would cost?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, yes, as Tane was alluding to, it's really the constraints of either the insurance companies or just the type of care that is provided. We see patients for a much longer period of time, and we also draw a lot more labs than what your traditional. So it's really not an apples to apples comparison, but the initial cost of our 1 hour one-on-one visit is $299, and the initial blood work, again, I believe it's 22 or 23 markers. That's going to be going over a full sex hormone panel, a full thyroid panel, cardiovascular markers, inflammatory markers, and vitamin deficiency markers.
Okay.
All of that you get for $299 as well.
Okay, an
So
additional 299. So
that's correct.
all in, when I come in for my blood work and the patient, it's about $600.
Right around just shy of $600. That's correct.
Okay, all right, not bad. Your website emphasizes personalization and lifestyle education. Tane also alluded to some of that. How do
hmm
you build a culture within the practice so that your patients are seen, they feel heard, and they do feel supported?
Yeah, I was going to piggyback on one of the last questions you asked Tane was, you know, how is that different and what are you really getting in that 1 hour? I mean, you bring all your questions. Again, a lot of times we do run over that 1 hour, even though it does cause some constraints in the office for everybody else and to make the system work well. But yeah, we do care for our patients. I mean, we have over 600 five-star reviews of patients that talk about how it feels different. It feels like a different experience than what they've gone to at the other offices. And quite honestly, it's just it really has to do with the culture of the team as well. You know, and again, this is what you get to work on when I'm not inundated in seeing patients. I can work on what the experience is when they call in, what our follow-up processes are, how they get handed off, and like it's a warm handoff from every step. And once you get done seeing, let's say Tane, for example, for an hour, you have, the nurse's email contact for any follow-up questions after that. You also have the patient care coordinator's contact because there's a lot of questions. I mean, when they come out after that first hour, it is a lot of information. And usually a patient's eyes are about this big and they're like, what did I just go through? Because it is again, just a very unique experience and very, very qualitative. It's just quality medicine over quantity medicine, the way that I guess the simplest way you can put it.
Right. Well, elite is in your name, and what it sounds like you're providing is an elite experience.
That's
So
right.
you are not
That's what we're
only
trying to do.
saying that in name, but you are doing it in practice.
Right.
Yep, yep. So as a non-practitioner owner, how do you balance business operations with the clinical side of the practice?
Sure. So I'm in communication with our clinic director and our clinical team often. We have clinical team meetings where we go over new things that are, again, it's all driven really through our medical director and our clinicians. We also just recently went to a functional medicine conference. We go once a year as a team and we learn about new therapies, new modalities, things to introduce, how to improve systems operations, things like that. So I work, I would say, alongside of, but I mostly stay in the administrative portion of the practice. I'm not really deeply involved in, looking at treatment plans or care plans or approving charts. That's all, our clinical team, our medical providers, and also our clinic director.
Now you've been in business for about 7 years, is that right? Did I do
Going
that
on
right?
7 years, that's correct.
Going on 7 years.
Yeah.
And so is there anything that you wish you would have knew sooner that you recently learned?
Oh boy, I would just say the amount of work that there's always needs to be done, just as a business owner in general. But no, I mean it's a journey. You know how we saw patients in the first 3 months that we were open, or 6 months, or year. Right, we opened right into the pandemic.
Yes.
That's also something you just can't like script or foresee, right? We opened in November of 2019, and I believe was hired in January of 2020, and February of 2020 is when the whole world stopped. So there's just so many things that happen that you just can't really script. But I would say, we did an awfully good job of navigating that. And again, I think a lot of people from the pandemic started opening up their eyes about vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, N-acetylcysteine, some of those natural supplements they were recommending during that time, and IVs. And there's just a lot of households that maybe had never heard of that before, that now that was kind of like mainstream talking points.
Right, right, exactly. Now, Tane, back to you. We walked through an example of coming in for your initial visit and getting to the root cause of some of the ailments someone may have, or getting those markers to an optimal level. From there, how do you create an individualized treatment plan for that patient?
So what we want to do is go based on their questionnaire to begin with, because they're going to put the things they're looking to resolve. So we really want to get to, let's work on the things they're looking for, but also based on the lab work. If thyroid needs help, I'm going to suggest something for that. If hormones need help, and a lot of the time they do, I'll be suggesting things for that, be it bioidentical hormone therapy. Supplements will be a big one, because we kind of always start with, first of all, it's food. So I do start with food, educate them about the importance of food, how it can also disrupt your GI tract or gut. So that's important as well. And then we work on adding supplements that are important. Knowing that we don't get all the nutrients out of the foods that we're eating, that's another whole discussion. So we do need to add supplements to be able to fill in those pieces that can help that patient work towards optimal health. So just based on what they're looking for, and then what we see from lab work, we'll start working with that to begin.
Has there been any instances where traditional medicine hasn't necessarily solved a problem that a patient has had, and they have come to you and you've been able to? You're laughing. You're like, all the time. This is every day.
Yes, it is. So sometimes it's a health circumstance. A lot of times that boils down to both systems, endocrine and gut. And because we do different sets of testing, so the hormone piece we'll look at more. Much of the time, something they leave off the table, they've only got 5 minutes for you. And so to be able to go in and use hormones, they don't really have the time for the follow-up for hormones for you. So there are certain things they can give you, but I don't think it's as individualized as it could be. And one of the things that gets left off the table a lot is testosterone. A lot of times they don't drive down into testosterone and go, well, is this important? And it's a hormone that's important for men as well as women. And when we don't have enough of it, we just don't have the energy or the get up and go that we really want to have to get things done. And so it's an unsung hero, and it's not the only one, but definitely it's one that really gets left off the table. And if we're going to provide that, or go ahead and start working towards replacing some of those numbers, then what we need to do is we need follow-up. And so it is going to take more hands-on care and more time with repeat visits with me.
Absolutely. And Andrew, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in there real quick. So, I mean, when you hang functional medicine on your door, you get everything. So hormones, gut, that's just, I mean, really scratching the surface. I mean, we will get very complex autoimmune conditions, chronic disease conditions. Again, patients that have struggled and went to 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 different providers trying to figure out what is going on, or give me a better recommendation than, I'm sorry, you just have to take this medication the rest of your life. And they don't like that solution, so they want to go try and find a different opinion. We get a lot of that, and we manage a lot of chronic conditions. And I will say, again, I get to read all of the reviews. I get to read all of the, wonderful things that people say about the care that we provide, so that I get to see it every day on how we're making a difference.
Absolutely. And I was even thinking, as I was listening to both of you talk, my insurance will cover my annual exam with my PCP as well as my gynecologist. So if I go to them, they tell me that, XYZ is wrong or your levels look this way. I can then take that information to you. So you don't have to start from square one, but you can say, oh, yeah, your blood pressure is high. Or also amongst my friends and I don't tell anybody because I don't look this old, but perimenopause is here.
It's real.
And since perimenopause is here, we have all these questions in my group chats about I'm feeling this way. What vitamins are y'all taking? I can't sleep. All these things. And so what I was thinking about as I was listening to you talking is, can I bring all of that information to you
Yes.
and you tell me even more than I probably
We
thought that
we
I could get
operate
from those
like
other
a
practitioners?
like any other doctor's office where we, you know,
Yeah.
share results and imaging and all kinds of things. We fax back and forth with other providers all the time, and we
We do.
have very robust files from, on each patient.
Hmm.
Whatever you're willing to share is even a greater starting point. So the more you share, the better of a solution we can provide.
Right.
That's true. And you can start, and it's not like we work in opposition to those other providers. Anytime we can work in concert with them, we are happy to do that. And you'll find that a lot of times in primary care, they are starting to look into our medicine and incorporate that into what they're doing. They simply just don't have the time.
Yeah.
But also that blood work gives you a big picture of what's going on. And also one thing I wanted to highlight is sometimes a person's got 5 different things going on, and we can do a little at a time with them. But that's a relationship that it's kind of like peeling an onion. It's in layers, and that's a beautiful vegetable, right? It's got beautiful layers, but they're layers. And so anytime that we're working with a human being, we're working with an individual that has a combination of genes that they inherited from their parents, environmental factors, plus those labs we're looking at. So you really are an individual. And sometimes we've got to do one thing at a time as we're trying to peel back those layers. And that's something I'd love for people to keep in mind, because by the time they get to us, it's a laundry basket full of items and they want it all fixed today. And sometimes I'd say, be patient with us and be patient with yourself, because we didn't get here overnight and we don't actually get better overnight either. It's a slow process, but it does mean that we are moving forward in the direction you're trying to get to.
Absolutely. I do want to touch on perimenopause for a moment. I know I just gave a little joke, but in all seriousness, it is something that, again, my friends and I are dealing with, and also something that I see a lot on Instagram now. And I think for my mother's generation, and probably even her mother, we really didn't talk about it. The only thing I really knew is that, there's going to be these hot flashes, and they called it the private summer. And I'm just like, all right, it's coming. But now that I am in it, there's so many things that I didn't know, still understanding how I manage it. But from your experience, what are some of the tactics that you use for patients that come in that may be perimenopausal?
First thing I would start by telling you, I think that from your mother's, my generation, when we're moving into this space, we focused so much on menopause. Like, that's the one thing. Okay, that's only that transition, which is like maybe a year or two, where you're trying to move into not having cycles anymore, menstrual cycles. Perimenopause, that can go on for 10 years. Nobody ever told you you're going to spend a large portion of your time in perimenopause. And what is it? And so what it is it's hormones changing over time, and that can take up to 10 years. And so what you're going to start seeing is some of those sex hormones decrease. Testosterone goes down, you start having brain fog, low energy, low libido, or sex drive. And I liken that, and I use this example all the time. When you're walking to the kitchen, you're going to go get something out of the fridge, and then halfway there you stop and you're like, oh my word, what was I going here for? Okay, wait, if I go back and trace my steps, maybe I can remember. And then you go and you stop, and you only say this to yourself, I hope to God I'm not getting dementia, and you're kind of worried. And it's like, it's your hormone. And when I say this to people, they laugh every single time. And I'm like, yeah, we all know. And we call it brain fog or mommy brain or whatever it is we're calling it. It's actually a change in hormones. We have a then decrease in progesterone, and If we are not waking up in the middle of the night, doing our shopping list, running errands, thinking about the things we forgot about, and then we can't go back to sleep. All we had to do is get up and go to the bathroom. Why is it we can't go back to sleep? What is wrong with me? Well, what's wrong with you is progesterone's low. And so then for us to go in and kind of put those hormones back, and then estrogen, the one that drives us crazy, because I always say that's kind of like our crazy little criminal getting away with mischief, because at the end, you get this crazy bleeding for years and it's really heavy and then it's nothing for 2 months. And then it shows back up again, goes away for 5 months. And you're like, I'm going out of my mind with this. And really what it is we need to get those hormones balanced. And then we haven't even talked about our adrenals and how sensitive we are to stress. And then we start getting that middle spread that keeps getting wider. You're like, what is wrong with me? And those are all those changes in the perimenopausal years that we can deal with to make that period of time so much better.
I love that. Well, I'm going to make my appointment to come see you. It sounds like we have a lot to talk about. Now this next question is for the both of you. Still on the topic of the things that people are kind of worried about and what we're going through. So it's the beginning of the year. This is a reset for some where you're thinking about detoxing and weight loss and things of that nature. So I would love to get each of your perspectives on some of the trends that are out there. What are you seeing? Is there anything that we should look out for as people are trying to hone in on their reset for 2026?
Sure, I can go first. So our approach is that, we try to meet the patient where they're at. Certain patients want to come to the door and they want a GLP-1. Right. And we'll talk them through that and we'll guide them and ultimately help them make the decision if that's right for them or not. Other of them like just a holistic approach. They don't really want to do that. They just want to do a detox. They want to do some diet and lifestyle. They want to do some health coaching. And, others want to do different peptides. Those are extremely popular right now. I would highly advise anytime you are going to be doing an injection of some kind or any sort of medication that you're doing it under the guidance of a medical professional. That's one thing that you'll see out there on the internet is, oh, hey, you can just buy your own bottle of peptides somewhere and just start injecting yourself. Not a good idea.
Okay.
You have blood levels, again, genes, certain things that you really should be looking at ahead of taking those, or any underlying conditions that you maybe aren't even diagnosed with. Again, these are all things that you should just be talking to a provider about first and getting their stamp of approval before taking any of these. But again, on the weight loss side, we meet the patient where they're at. They come in, they do a consult, a much smaller panel of blood work, and then also, again, just talking through how much. Do you want to be all in on this? Do you want to just do this? How much weight do you need to lose? What are your goals? And then we find a solution for them.
Yes. And I think that talking about we're hitting the beginning of the year and everybody is ready to turn over a new leaf. And it starts right in January. We've got our New Year's resolution. What I think is important once we get those lags is I like my patients a couple of times a year, actually just to take a week and do a detox. Now, there are other providers that love doing it for a month. I find it really hard to get a commitment out of someone for a month to be able to do a detox. They just don't seem to want to hang with it for a whole month. But boy, if you could just set me up and give me a tune-up and a week does it. That's what we try to do because, again, it's back to Andrew's point of trying to meet the patients where they are. But I think right when we get done with that whole holiday period of time at the end of the year, we've been at work and people are bringing in cakes and cookies and treats and we've had time off. And anytime we have time off, we're just going to enjoy the good life a lot more. We're going to have good food and probably food that's not the best for you. And so what we want to do at the end of all that is we want to do a detox. And I think another good time to do one of those 1 week resets is at the end of summer. Because then again, we're going off on vacation, having that good food and maybe living the good life. And when we do all of that, our body is like, well, okay, so now you've lived the good life. Are you going to give me a tune-up just like you would tune up your car? And I think it's really important to do that tune-up a couple of times a year.
I like that. I like that analogy a lot. Are there sustainable habits that you encourage your patients to use throughout the year?
So I have to laugh when I say this. it always starts with food. So no matter what, I would rather, and my favorite is pull out gluten and dairy, but I know that's not always doable for everybody. But
Okay.
really looking at the quality of our food, because what you put in your mouth is going to have a really big impact. So as close to nature as you can get, meaning whole foods. And so shopping the periphery of the grocery store, as many people have heard before, anything on the inside is processed. And if we really could avoid that and just stay away from those processed foods, that'd be great. The other thing that's important, sleep is really important. So really dialing down on that sleep is great. A lot of people have devices, whether it's watches or rings, that are helping them kind of be aware how much activity are they getting. So that's the third thing. When we're doing all these good habits, then those little devices are going to tell us, how's your body responding to that? And so monitoring how your body's responding, and then also looking at stress, because stress is a big, big player in your health.
Absolutely. And those are really practical tips, things that that seem very normal. You know, it doesn't seem like I have to do anything out of the ordinary to take into consideration and take this advice that you've just given. But there's so much information out there, and the trends are just coming at us. And it's like, oh, let me hop on the keto diet, or let me, hop on whatever else is. I can't even think of all the things, but no carb this and no carb that. So those are very practical tips. So thank you for sharing those. Do you have any examples, a success story of a transformation that you like to share? Of course, I know you can't share any patient names, but is there a case that you are particularly proud of?
I have one and I mean, there's a lot of these, but this was a fun one that I thought was kind of fun. I had one person who, it actually was a gentleman of all things, and his company had got bought out, and he actually was the CEO of the company. And so what they did was they gave him a package, bought the company out, and he decided, and he was 55, and he came in, and I saw him, and he said, okay, I've got 2 years I'm going to take off. And in these 2 years, I'm going to complete my bucket list. And the top thing on my bucket list is I want to climb Pikes Peak. And that's a 14,000 foot mountain in Colorado. And he was going to take 2 weeks and go on a journey. And it was coming in a year to a year and a half that he had this trip. And he was going to get his whole body ready for this trip. So he came in looking like he was a middle-aged, 55, had a little bit of a gut on him, not as healthy as he could be, but he was going to climb this mountain, I promise you. And so I said, well, I asked him my questions from the list, did the first visit, and I said, well, I think you have brain fog, and I'm describing this, and he doesn't understand, laughs when I do my going to the refrigerator story. We put him on hormones. And so, as well as cleaning up the diet, doing the detox, everything that we get our patients started doing and he's in the lab one day, a month and a half later, with one of my nurses, and they're giving him an injection of testosterone. And I walk by and he goes, Tane, hold on a minute. I said, oh, what? And he goes, I didn't quite know really what brain fog was when you told me. He goes, but now I get it. He'd been on testosterone for a month and a half, and all of a sudden the fog started to lift. He went on to climb Pikes Peak. He wound up looking like a middle-aged man ad for REI. By the time they got, I was like, whoa. I mean, you could have looked at the man and you knew he hyped by then. And this was just a year or so year and a half in. He had gone on when we met before, because he wound up moving away. But when we met before he had left, he was planning a trip to go ahead and hike Patagonia. So he wasn't done.
Goodness.
He was just continuing on that same path.
Yes. Well, that's a wonderful story.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome.
I'm going to bring my husband with me too when I come see you. So
we'll take him. You got
we're
great.
about to be empty nesters, so we need all the energy we can get, because you're not going to be able to find us on whatever vacation we're going on. So we both need to be at optimal health around here. Andrew, back to you. So what's next for EPM? And are you working on any new services, expansions, innovation?
Yeah, we got a lot of things we're working on. One very exciting new thing that we've introduced in the last 2 months is pediatric functional medicine. So we are seeing children as young as a newborn, consulting parents on how to navigate vaccine schedules and all the things that they want to know about from a pediatrician standpoint. So we have a pediatrician now on our team. We are looking at a third location. So we have 2 locations currently. One is in Peachtree Corners and the other one is in Hamilton Mill / Buford area. And so, yeah, we're looking for a third location this year, and we're really excited to continue to push and drive not only our adult functional medicine that is continuing to grow, but also the pediatric medicine, as we are just so delighted when adolescents come in the office and you get to see their energy and hopefully start to get their families to see some healing in their household. Again, feels great when you're helping adults, but I mean, there's something about children that's just absolutely fantastic when you're talking about healing and complex cases. Again, functional medicine, it's usually can be some complex cases and trying to figure out how to improve their health.
Awesome, amazing. So as we wrap up, I'd love to hear from both of you. Are there any last tips or messages that you want our listeners to take away about their health that we may not have discussed?
Tane, go ahead. You can go first.
So something we also left off, we talked about hormones, but I also think not to leave the gut off the table.
Okay.
A lot of times we have a lot of patients who follow with gastroenterology are having a lot of gut issues and a lot of inflammation there. And that's also a big part of the picture of what we do. And there are different testing that we can do in functional medicine that they simply don't do in primary care, not because they don't want to. But again, it's that 5-minute piece where you really only have 5 to 15 minutes with someone. We don't have that time in primary care to spend with you. But if we have constipation, if you're not having a bowel movement at least 1 to 3 times a day, I prefer 3, but once after every meal within a half hour, that's dream. And that's what we'd like to see. If we're really not having that, there can be something going on in the gut. If you're needing to live on those stomach medications like Prilosec, Pepcid, there are some people that must take those. So I will never say always or never in this, and you'll learn in functional medicine not to ever say always or never. But if you're having to live on that, those medicines are really only designed for 14 days use. If you do that, it can have an impact on bone health. So it's important that we're not on those meds all the time. If we need to be on that because we can't eat without them, then we need to take a deeper look. And there are tests that we can do to get down to the bottom of that. So I didn't want to leave off that other functional medicine piece that's important because we do other tests. We look at neurotransmitters. We look at, is there an imbalance in toxins from our environment that the body is reflecting? So, as well as other things in addition. So there are things we can look at as well. And it is
awesome. Anything from you, Andrew? And then you can wrap us up and tell us how we can book a consultation.
Sure. Yeah, no, I was just going to say, if you've ever heard of the term or if you've ever thought about the idea of getting connected with a functional medicine office, we are extremely transparent. We'll talk you through as many questions as you need before you're willing to commit to potentially come and see us as a patient. We'll let you know all the fee structures. We'll let you know kind of what the cadence might potentially be of how many follow-up visits, how many, what the recommendations might be coming. Again, until you see the provider, we can't really tell you exactly what you're going to get in a treatment plan. But yeah, we would love to at least have a conversation and get some questions answered about any of the stuff that you're seeing online or any misnomers that are out there. And how you can get a hold of us, we do have 2 offices, so I'll give you both numbers depending on what location might be easiest for you to contact. But our Peachtree Corners office, you can contact them at 770-416-1070. And then our Hamilton Mill office is 770-615-6100. Those are the main lines you'll be able to get to. Usually there's a prompt that'll tell you for a new patient consult. Okay. Just, usually click that prompt. The easiest way for us to take on a new patient is for you to go to our website and fill out a form. We do reach out to any and all of those within 24 hours, sometimes same day, and we can talk them through whichever area of health they're trying to improve. One thing I'll state real quick is that do like to offer something especially if I go on a podcast, and would like to give some sort of special offer to your listeners. So
Thank
I'd like to
you.
provide, yeah, of course. I'd like to provide a $100 off your initial blood work. So that would bring that from earlier stated $299 down to $199. And if they are interested in coming in for weight loss instead of doing a full functional medicine evaluation, then we would have that be a $69 consult instead of it regularly being $175.
Amazing.
So I've already informed my team, and anybody that wants to call, feel free to contact us, and we'll take care of them.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you for that discount for our listeners, and thank you both for sharing your expertise. This is so informative, and I can't wait to come see you in the office. This gave us a really deeper look into the world of functional medicine. I learned a lot. I'm sure the audience did too. And so if anybody who is listening wants to take control of their health this year, like I know you do, you can learn more about Elite Personalized Medicine at epmlife.com or connect with them on social media. So this has been 1 Minute with Monée. Until next time, be well and be balanced.
Thank you, Monée.
Thank you for joining me this week. Let's continue the conversation on social media at 1 Minute with Monée on all channels. Also, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. Until next time, be well and be balanced.